I'd like to begin by reading a familiar verse from the Hebrew Bible. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. I imagine you are at least somewhat familiar with this section of Ecclesiastes. It's become cliched to the point of throw pillow inspiration, but most cliches started out as a new and powerful way to express truth. And these verses are trying to express big truth. They're attempting to describe the totality of human experience. They're found in a book written to remind us that we're just one small part of a much larger scheme, and that we'd better come to accept that all is vanity. Ecclesiastes is a great book, and I encourage you to read it if you haven't or haven't in a while. But I've shared these verses today to call our attention once again to the cyclical nature of life. We exist on a spinning planet, and we're constantly cycling through the various aspects of life. Pleasure and pain, success and failure, hope and despair. Of course, we're all drawn toward ease, laughter, and happiness, to the excitement of birth, to the passion of love. But the reality is, and will always be, that pain is part of our existence too. Death and mourning will always be with us. We don't have control over much. In fact, we might only have true control over one thing: our attention. Life is a beautiful, complicated, painful thing. And what we pay attention to matters, because through focused attention, we're able to experience life with awareness and clarity. The Buddha taught that pain and suffering are like two arrows. Pain is the first arrow. Its shot can't be avoided. We'll all experience seasons of painful darkness. But the second arrow is suffering, and its shot can absolutely be avoided. The second arrow represents our reaction to the pain that comes our way. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Let this, the dissolution of union with pain, be known as yoga." Two of the Sanskrit words in the scripture are samyoga and viyoga, coming together and moving apart, union and dissolution. Ecclesiastes spoke of times to tear and times to sow, times to build up and times to break down. In this scripture, Krishna is asking us to break down the ways that we've united ourselves with pain. The root of the word yoga is yuj, which means yoke. In life, we'll walk through all different seasons. We'll experience darkness and light, dormancy and activity, pain and gladness. But here's the thing, we can't yoke ourselves to any of them. The changing seasons are just one part of the ever-changing nature of life. The goal of spiritual practice ultimately is to yoke ourselves with the unity of all things, with divine mystery. But the journey toward this ultimate goal is made up of millions of small moments, moments of pause where we notice what we've yoked our attention to. When we find ourselves ruminating on how we feel gloomy and cranky about the darkness, we can yoke to something else. I'm being serious here and deeply practical. I'm, of course, not trying to diminish the pain of serious depression and grief. If you're lost in deep darkness, please seek help. What I'm talking about is the everyday variety of malaise and irritation that I hear from so many people in response to darker and darker days. So I'm asking, when you find yourself feeling gloomy and cranky about the darkness, can you redirect your attention? What brings you joy? What are your dreams? What do you love? For everything, there is a season. It's currently dark and cold outside. In the northern hemisphere, the earth is taking time for regeneration. As we wait for the natural light to come back to us, can we turn our attention toward the wisdom of Mother Nature? Can we take time for rest and recuperation? Can we use the cover of darkness to imagine our dreams more fully? Can we use the quiet of darkness to more deeply yoke ourselves with inner joy and build up our reservoir of love?